Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of Ley Lines by Tim Welsh. This is a book from Granerica Editions. It's coming out May 1st, 2025. It is a fantastical historical fiction / kind of literary fiction. Look at the cover, it's pretty. I received this from a publicist in exchange for a fair review. A strange novel with a touch of fever dream, Ley Lines is inventive and thematically deep. What is it about? Set in the waning days of the Klondike Gold Rush, Ley Lines begins in the mystical boom town of Sawdust City, Yukon Territory, where luckless prospector Steve Ladle has accepted an unusual job offer, accompany a con man to an unconquered top of a nearby mountain. What they find there briefly upends Sawdust City's fading fortunes, while inadvertently setting in motion a series of events that brings about the town's ruin. In the aftermath, a ragtag group of characters is sent reeling across the Klondike, struggling to come to grips with a world that has been suddenly and unpredictably upturned. As power and capital consolidate themselves and old systems of order and inequality slowly reemerge, our protagonists reckon with the various personal, historical, and supernatural forces that have brought them to this moment. Yeah. Now, this book reminds me of Thomas Pynchon in a way, as there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but no one really questions it. For example, there's a giant floating ear that just becomes an attraction of sorts. It's never really studied or explained in the narrative. Yes, an ear, like from your head. It's just giant and it's floating around. The characters react to it with a sort of bemused nonchalance, which sets the tone for the rest of the novel, encouraging us as readers to also just kind of accept the weird stuff that's going to happen and just roll with it. I will admit that while there were other sorts of cryptic things in the novel I did understand, like thematically what they were like representing, I'm still not entirely sure what that year was about. I'm not even sure we're supposed to. It's almost like this surreal, bizarre stuff is meant to represent that life moves in ways we often can't attach a pattern to, and that it's supposed to bring us into what life felt like for those living in the Yukon in the late 1800s. Like leaving your home, wherever it is, and traveling to the Yukon, a very wild place that's hard to live in. I've never been there. I want to go there so bad. It's on my list. I would love to go there. Anyway, leaving your home, going up there to become like an oil panner, and then failing at it, that's kind of a surreal experience. And I think that kind of is a way to kind of make us kind of fall into the mindset of these people that are living up there. The characters are fun. Sasha, the bar owner, was my favorite, of course, but there were also sympathetic characters like Don and Steve who carried most of the narrative, as well as Zeb Dingle, a character I could not take seriously, and I don't think we're meant to, because, well, my sister's like 2-pound little tiny dog is named Zeb. And Dingle, well, there's a reason the peninsula in Ireland is called that. I'm going to show you a map here. I've actually been to Dingle. It's beautiful. I got to hold a baby sheep. It was the best. What am I talking about? Okay, so tied to the silliness of Zeb, the book isn't laugh out loud funny, but it does carry with it at times a sort of like jokey, tongue-in-cheek air. It also gets quite serious at times, dealing with death and struggle and survival. But the tone is never incongruent. Like, it never catches you off guard. It kind of moves and blends with what's going on, kind of also like life, Some things are funny, some things suck. The prose also dips into literary fiction at time. It doesn't hold your hand, telling you something once and never reminding you. And we're left to make connections ourselves as to why characters change their course or why they make the decisions that they do. A lot of time also passes quickly, with some events glossed over, which sometimes was hard to wrap your head around. When the big calamity happens, it took me a while to realize kind of what had happened. And then I also didn't understand kind of the logistics behind it. I was like, so these people are just staying here? I'm like, how are they getting supplies? Like, how are they? I don't know. That part I kind of, I did read this while I was going through my terrible neck pain that I talked about in one of our previous videos. So that might be the problem. I was on a lot of Advil. Anyway, tied to this, as much as I really enjoyed the novel overall, I will admit the last third had my interest dropping off a little bit. The characters seemed to be restarting from where they were in the first 2/3 of the book. So instead of a progression, it felt almost like a repetition. Yet I think this was meant to show the cyclical and unsustainable nature of boom towns, of, if we drill even deeper into this, our society as a whole, our focus on capitalizing on something and then bleeding it absolutely dry, only to move to the next thing. consumerism, if you will. More specifically, I can't help but see how this relates to the environment in particular, but you can also relate it to less tangible things. I actually think this is a great book to like write an essay on because there are a lot of themes you can kind of like drag out and connect from the book. You can do a deeper dive into a lot of the things that are brought up as it feels deliberate. Of course, the title hints at this, but ley lines are lines of earth energy that connect important monuments and things together. Like how the pyramids are along the same ley lines as the Mayan temples, stuff like that. It's a sort of mysticism thing, which is interesting, but it's obviously not proven. Given the mystical elements in this book, and there are a lot of them, the idea that perhaps this area of the Yukon is an undiscovered temple, maybe that was kind of an argument. Obviously, this is just conjecture on my point. Or maybe it's a focal point of some kind of power. That would make a lot of sense given kind of what was going on in the book. It's never overtly said, though. I think this is something we're just supposed to speculate on, because of the two kind of scientists, in a way, in this book that are trying to extract these weird ear-like body part things, I'm not going to get too deep into it. We never really kind of get a scientific purpose of it. It's almost more like, it's very fantastical. If you're curious about ley lines, you can check out the old book, The Old Straight Track, which is the best title ever. Or you could just read about it on Wikipedia. I'll admit, I think it's absolute nonsense, but it makes for a fun theory. I am the least mystical, spiritual person ever, though, so I'm just a cynic. I will point out that there is some gold panning and a wilderness hike at one point, but there isn't a great deal of focus on the beauty of the area. So if you were looking for a lush historical fiction about the gold rush, dealing with, the landscape and things like that, or if you wanted to learn more about kind of the gold rush, you won't get that from this. It's not a historical fiction in that regard. Overall, though, if you're looking for something a little different, something that's somewhat of historical fiction, but not really, and has rather weird characters and events, and you like Thomas Pynchon, you should check this out. It's really interesting. It's weird. It's one of the weirder books I've read in a while, and I think that's a good thing. I think that it's unique, and that's really cool. And I'm really cool that it's Canadian, because I really like to support Canadian writers, because I'm Canadian myself. And so thank you again to the publicist for sending me this for a review, and